Fair enough, fair enough. All right, cool. All right, so active network theory. My understanding of it is that it looks at things as both a physical and semiotic analysis, and they all come together. So if something means, escapism, that idea isn't attached to one of the actants. Basically, I would say actors, because I think from my understanding, Latour wanted to use the word actants because actors is human, but actants can include things. So of all the actants in the system, you can have things that exist and things that are metaphors, and all of those things like connect to make one big air quote landscape. But then also, if you look at things individually, it will also shape how individual actants in the landscape are explained as to why they're being there. So, for example, if you look at for example, I saw a thing about Proud Boys today. If you look at a Proud Boy, they have ideologies that are attached to them, as well as the sense of community, as well as their political ideology, as well as their family life, etc., etc. And all those things then play into the wider far right as a landscape, which then broader into a wider political landscape. And all of those things are both actants and landscapes. So it can be as big as you want or as small as you want. And it really just depends on what direction you want to take it in. I think Melissa posted a really good example where someone goes air quote meta, and they're looking at theories, but also like physical things, and et al. I'm trying to pull it up now, 1 second. So yeah, okay, here we go. There's one here that has theories, criticisms, actors, and networks. And for example, the whole thing was an actor network theory. And then one of the network branches says actor network theory explores the way networks are composed and maintained. Then in their theory, it's got science and technology studies, where you follow the actor. On its criticisms, it says it neglects pre-existing structures. And then on its actor's end, one of the examples is generalized symmetry. All entities described are described in the same terms. So yeah, you can go as broad or as narrow as you want with it, really.
You go on.
I was just going to ask if that clarifies things for you a little bit.
Yeah, like I didn't do too much reading into it, but like from what I saw, like looking at brief definitions, and like I saw Melissa's video slides, I thought basically it's just like analyzing in a really dumb way, analyzing everything in like multiple ways, like you said, like physical and like semiotic, and how they interact, and how something is made up of like different components, which in turn like have their own background and like function as like a specific way that the whole bunch of ingredients work. Like Melissa's example was a phone in a video, and that's like at least how I understood it. It's like I'd say it's like going into the components and why they're there and what they do of a phone.
It's funny that you call it dumb, because even Latour doesn't respect it that much. Like, he's like, this whole thing's kind of stupid. I'm putting in the chat a keynote address he delivers to USC Annenberg that helped me understand it a little bit better. Before I started recording, I said, yeah, it's nice to be able to learn from a theorist who's still alive and cares enough about technology that you can like watch videos on them. I think the last theorist I managed to hear from was like Neil Postman, and that was in 2000. It was just like a type up of his speech. So yeah, to then jump forward 10 years and you've got another theorist talking about is pretty cool. There's another one that I saw by Grant Kean on a YouTube channel called Serious Science, and he's a lecturer or a scholar at Serious Science.
Can we quote we can quote the lecture, right?
Yeah, you can.
It's considered academic.
Yeah. There's even like inside locate the APA referencing system even has like how you would reference a lecture. What I've done though is because they're both because the lecture he gives is a video. I've referenced it as a video, so it's just a web link.
Yeah, that's
Um,
easier.
yeah, way easier. And yeah, because also because I wasn't there, I know there might have been a difference in upload date and the date was delivered. So small details like that might matter, especially if someone's trying to look back at your sources. So I stumbled into that problem looking up some Marshall McLuhan stuff, and in the picture, Marshall McLuhan put the wrong date. So I was trying to look for the speech he gave. So like, sorry, his like grandson or nephew or somebody found his like archive of all his books and all of his speeches. Marshall put the wrong date, so his son, grandson, whoever it is, ends up putting like in his archive the wrong date. So you try and like backdate that source, like find the full transcript, and you can't do it. And then later on, he has like 2 years later, he has like a correction saying, "Oh look, I found out that the date he put down was wrong." And it's like, damn, 2 years of work just to track down the date he did of a speech in 1963. That's just kind of stupid, but yeah,
Yeah.
headaches. But yeah, so I referenced it as a
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying about the referencing stuff as like this more simple way each time. Reference the whole fucking book instead of just like, nah, it wasn't 3 pages. I'd say this is the book summarized basically.
Yeah, because that's the weird thing about how these chapters, like how referencing works, is that if you could, like, because quite often what I'm referencing really is a chapter,
Yeah,
in a book, and it'd be nice if there was a way for me to reference that chapter, but there's not, so
yeah,
the whole thing just gets thrown out.
yeah.
Because the only other time you can reference a chapter is if it's in an edited collection, and it's like, well,
No,
I don't
I
want to look
had
at.
I had to reference a chapter and I just did pages.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that makes sense. That actually does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I had like I found like a book on Google Scholar and I didn't have access to like the full of it and I didn't know whether it was just chapter one because it didn't say like end of chapter one. So I was like, I'll just go pages and keep it safe.
Damn. Yeah. That's the weird thing about referencing is uh if I look at locate, it's got pretty good, but doesn't have everything. So now look at the actual APA referencing guide, like the official APA booklet that locate has used to make up its little website,
Yeah,
and that includes even smaller like niche details, like you don't use a hyphen, use like this weird like
yeah,
half size thing. I'm like, oh, I don't even know what that is on my keyboard. And then go even further, then other universities who have more like complete referencing guides have different details on it as well, like this is the font you use,
yeah.
this is like, damn, what am I doing here? But yeah.
Yeah, at least you don't have to wait. You don't have to put the guy's first name in the bracket of the date, and then you. Is there no date accessed as well?
No, that's only on CU Harvard or in Harvard, so
Yeah, I
thankfully
don't
one
know
less
why
for me to
they made
reference.
us change it. Like I could do CU Harvard without like looking at the guide, and I did it correctly. And now I'm just like every time I do it automatically, like through a page, and then I just go over it and change.
Yeah. CU Harvard, I got to the point where I could just do it without having to look at the referencing guide. It was like,
Yeah,
this is the bracket, but APA every 2 minutes I'm checking that guide. Oh, is this right?
yeah.
Ah.
There's definitely like different ones as well, like you said, which is why I don't know why
Mm.
Coventry wants to be such a great university so badly.
Oh, that's jokes. So that's actor network theory. Which brings us on to like, should we look at post-digital bodies again? Wait, no, we did that on Monday, didn't it?
Yeah,
We did
no,
that on Monday.
wait, could you summarize it into like, imagine like you have a Greek person in front of you who doesn't understand the concept.
Of post-digital bodies or of network theories?
No, 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 network theory.
Okay, so in this hypothetical scenario,
Yes.
network theories looks at physical things and metaphorical things and maps them in ways that they all connected in order to argue that they have an equal amount of influence over a situation or over a person. Um,
Okay.
so so if we use like a book as a quick example, it is just as influential that you use paper and ink and a writer to make that book as it is to say that this book gives information and is about a topic and gives escapism to the reader. Um,
Okay.
but then even if you want to go even bigger, you can even say that like governments that allow import tariffs on paper are also just as important in allowing that book to be published. So yeah, you can go as far out or as narrow or as niche as you want, really, I guess.
Okay.
Which is the great thing about acting network theory.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. I'll tell that Greek person if I find him.
Yeah, if
Uh,
you ever see that person again,
yeah.
yeah,
He
quick
just
summary.
came into the room and like had so many questions, but then he just left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephanie, do you have any questions or inputs you want to add to that?
Not really. I think the way I understood it was actually looking at it using the example of a cake, because having like all
Oh,
the
nice.
ingredients and then going back and the other parts of it, because
Yeah.
before that I had no bloody clue what I was doing, but like breaking it down was like such a simple thing. Like, yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that actually brings into a really good argument that's also come up around acting network theory, and that is this idea that like the network can break down if you smash up that cake, versus another perspective which says that the network hasn't been broken, it's just changed. So I think the arguing that things break down once you destroy the network is like a deconstructivist approach. Whereas I don't know what the right word is for the one that says things never destroy, they just change. That alternative perspective is almost like saying that like I think I saw an analogy about physics, how energy or matter is never destroyed, it's like it's only ever transferred. And so it kind of holds on to that similar concept, which makes sense because, you know, active network theory's roots are in science and technology studies. So for it to hold on to similar principles that are in wider science makes sense, I'd argue. So yeah, if you smash up a cake, it might not be a cake, but it still has all the ingredients of a cake. It's now something else. It could be, I don't know, the beginning of a smoothie or whatever.
Yeah. this was like the example she gave of a phone. The guy like the video. I don't know if you guys saw it. But yeah.
Yeah, 60 seconds, right? It explains in 60
Yeah,
seconds. That was quite interesting.
That's like most of the times when I don't understand something, I know that some guy has really simplified it on YouTube. So it helps to like get that start off of YouTube. Like I'm not gonna reference like I don't know, political economy for dummies. But it definitely helps. But yeah. Like I was doing something about Foucault with Mafalda, and I just Googled like Foucault, and something popped up, and it was like explaining Foucault's history in madness or something like that in like 5 minutes, and it was like those types of things where it's like fake paper cutouts that move, and it's like this guy said this, and I was like, okay, this is a good way to understand like the beginning, and then just use it for the rest. But
yeah. I think I saw, you know, speaking of Foucault, I saw something about his idea of the real, and that fried my brain. And I was like, man, I need to lie down after this.
Wait, what did he say? Because I might have went into it as well, because I was just Googling Foucault for like 3 days.
Yeah, basically that's what happens when you try and research Foucault. But basically, like if we look at realism through a prism, like all of our influences get filtered into what we consider to be real. However, that doesn't answer if it is real or not. So how do we know it's real? It's like, what?
No, when I was reading Foucault, it was like most of the things were like things you either agreed with or you had like a lot to think about. And I thought I was going insane because I was telling a friend of mine that when you're researching something and you find the person who's just telling you that whatever you thought is correct and you haven't spoken to another person in 3 days, you kind of feel like very powerful and very intellectual because you're just getting what you think thrown back at you and basically validated. So you're like, okay, I know everything.
Yeah, that's entirely it with Foucault. I think what made it even worse for me is that I've ended up stumbling onto another theorist, Slavoj Zizek, Slavoj Zizek, and his interpretation and of Foucault, and it was just as crazy. And then I ended up watching one of his films about ideology, as he calls it, ideology, and he's like, if you put the glasses on, ideology is like glasses that that we see it as, we think it's as like a filter, but in truth, once you like know what your ideology is and you're looking at everything through this filter, everything makes sense. And he like compared it to a dumpster, and he's like, it does, just because you haven't told me it's a dumpster doesn't make it not a dumpster kind of thing. He gives like a really funny analogy, and I was like, damn, this guy's jokes. But yeah, it was just it was
Yeah, most of the interpretations of Foucault are made like by other students who are like, oh, presenting Foucault's ideas on this thing. And it was like, or I saw an hour lecture of Foucault.
yeah,
And most
yeah,
of
yeah,
them
yeah,
were
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know, like I couldn't find too much stuff to use of Foucault, but it has like some interesting things to say.
Yeah, I think from the same thing that I found as well. I think what I found is a lot of them were master's students, which
Yeah.
kind of tells me of the level of, well, yeah, the master's or PhD students, which tells me that like that is a level where you don't want to like keep, you don't want to keep all of your sanity. Like you're going after real academic heights here. You have to
Yeah.
sacrifice something, and your sanity is the first one that's going to be going on this one.
Yeah, but I feel like I don't mind reading all of this and like getting a bit more educated, but like I don't know whether the way like journalism is heading, which is where I want to go. I hope I don't become like a BuzzFeed cake guy, which is like studying like journalism for 3 years, and then you just become like a BuzzFeed what cake are you? And then it's like you read Foucault 2 years ago and now you're like 30 years old writing about like why this person is like sponge cake.
You are the sponge.
Yeah.
But that actually brings me. That actually is an accidental, really good segue into the idea of black boxes inside actor network theory, because the whole like, you have to go back to it accidentally. It's like this idea that like you can have objects that have purposes, but they don't fulfill that purpose until you fail at it. Um, which, to clarify, the idea of a black box, right, is something that you install onto a plane, and it will always be working, but you never need it until that plane crashes. And it's like, damn,
Yes.
okay, that's kind of weird. So in this case, you having everything is your degree and training in journalism, and then it failing is when you learned it as a BuzzFeed cake article guy. But yeah, I've opened up the reading from Daryl Cressman about brief overview of actor network theory, where he compares, I'm assuming it's a he, compares actor network theory to a series of engineering principles. So for example, on page 6, he brings up black boxes and punctualization. And what he talks about here is like this idea of a black box to describe a technical object is that like most sociological, philosophical, and historical approaches to technology, forget the words, right, look at it as like a study of black boxes. And so if we think of actor network theory as a box in itself, it could be anything really. So it could be the computer. He even writes about it could be a car or television or any technical object, and everything should work as it should. And therefore, when everything is working, we don't consider those relationships, those ties. So going back to the idea of a book, we don't consider that there's ink or paper, or that there's a writer when everything's working well. But if you destroy a book, pull out the pages to make it into fire, we go, oh wait a minute, there's all of these other things going on here.
Yeah, but isn't that like basically I mean that could be seen as like when you said before about like if with the black boxes, if you see something wait, I'm gonna close my WhatsApp on my computer because it's making too much noise, all of
Fair
these
enough.
DMs. But yeah,
Wow, Mr.
like you said
Popular.
before, if you break something down, like if you break it, then you can see its components, but through like actor network theory, we're breaking it down and seeing its components anyways, without like,
I'm not mean.
I mean,
Yeah.
smashing it.
No, you're right. And that's when like we get into like the trickiness of like, do we look at things as because they've been destroyed, they are different, or is it just because they've been destroyed that they've simply changed? Because if we use like the analogy of a black box again, and I know there's a danger in using analogies because they don't usually stick, but like a plane is still a plane even if it's it's crashed into some rocks. You get what I mean? It's just a broken plane kind of thing. It might not fly, but all of the parts are there in theory to remake them and to make it fly again. But yeah, because it really does depend. Because I would say that like depending on your perspective or what you think is more valid, an entirely different set of readings opens up. Because if you think about it, if you argue that you can destroy a network, which I'd say is probably possible if you look at it like historically. Like we don't have necessarily an aristocracy anymore, and that was once a network of individuals. That's someone else could jump in and say, well, actually, it's changed. They're now just a general upper class kind of thing, and it gets really sticky because like where do you go with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, what can actor network theory be broken down into? Like, for example, Melissa says like we should focus. At least she says it to me. I don't know if she keeps secrets from you guys, but she says you need to focus on like one aspect of every like topic and do a case study on that. And that seems to me like it's like a actor network theory seems like it's just like one big thing.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, even Bruno kind of looks at it as like saying, you're saying it's like it's so vast that it's useless to kind of say that it isn't something. Instead, we should look at it as a series of smaller things, or apply it to smaller case studies, and that's how we begin to see it kind of come together. So if we use like the example of like a guy at a bar, for example, to like really like to go granular, how much that guy earns, why, like what day of the week he's there, like how much he earns would kind of depend on what kind of type of bar he might be going into. Like we're not going to see a multi-millionaire at a dive bar, for example. Also, if he's like married or has like a social life, it's going to impact what day he's going in. Like he's not going to, like, if you've got like, I don't know, typically a middle American family guy, he's not going to be in the bar on 10 o'clock on a Tuesday because he's got he's got to put his kids to bed or whatever, spend some time with his wife. I don't know.
Stop lying.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I knew you were gonna do it. I knew you were gonna do that. But like, if he's like a single guy, he might be. Alternatively, Saturday night they might both be in there. Also, their interest will depend on what type of bar it is. For example, like if he has no interest in sports, it's not going to be in a sports bar. And so, if we then take all of those situations, we're going to take the sports bar and apply that into a wider context and say, oh look, a sports bar can only exist when sports are popular in that town, city, country, whatever. There's also a market around them. Enough people are interested in sports for it to make commercial sense. They're also only going to be there if, like, say, alcohol is available as well. And even then, what they serve is going to matter as well. So, like, it's not going to be like, I don't know of any vegan sports bars, right? So, having connections to commercial meat industries is also going to impact how that bar functions. And then going even wider again, like if there's like poor agricultural, environmental standards, then the meat isn't necessarily going to be of that good quality, and it could make people sick or whatever it is. So then that's going to matter as well. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And we can say, oh, look, this country exists in an ACTANT network with other nations because of trade agreements, or open borders or other EU fund stuff. So yeah, you're right in saying that it feels like everything. What's that?
Yeah, it basically is like in-depth background analysis.
Yeah.
I feel like
it's very descriptive. That's the thing as well. Because actor network theory isn't necessarily the beginning and end of your analysis. Like you might use actor network theory to identify things that you would then take up with more analysis of with other theories or other frameworks. So then, like, you might say actor network theory is your beginning, and then you move into media ecology, which then takes you into, cultural geography, and then that will take you to something else, takes you to something else. So yeah, it's more of like a journey, and that's where the idea of the black box comes in again, isn't it? Because if you've got a plane crash and you find the black box, what could be revealed is that it could be, a parts failure, and then that could go one way. It's like, oh, it was a bird strike or lightning hit it, or it could be it was poor maintenance. That takes you to another form of investigation where you then investigate who was meant to be doing maintenance on the plane and why they didn't. It could be budgets or financial concerns, and that could lead into, more and more things. Or it could be, something like it was just pilot error, and then you investigate the pilot's, personal life as to why they might have done something. So yeah, it's really like the beginning of your investigation. It's how it was pitched, or how Latour pitches it. So yeah, it's just,
what you used as your case study for the blog. If you don't want to share, you don't have to.
I'm more than happy to share. I just need to double check because I wrote ages ago. 1 second.
Major flex.
Major flex. But what did I use?
Ground control to major flex.
What did I put? Network theories. Here we go. I'm just opening up my submission because that's faster than going through the 10 million unorganized Word documents.
Also, if the submission for like the blogs and the podcast is on the 5th and you submit it on the 3rd, are we gonna have time to get feedback on this?
Yeah, this is what I'm kind of worried about, because I've kind of done it anyway. Oh goodness, I actually did the bar example. I didn't even realize. I've done, so for example, when looking at an individual, the things which shape them include their level of education and mode of study, their personal philosophy and worldview, politics, family and upbringing, the sense of style, occupation and earning potential, interpersonal relationships and more. As such, those intangible things will impact their physical choices, such as the clothes they wear, the mode of commerce, so if they pay by cash or card, the scene in which they're in, and what they're about to be interact with, and in what language. I didn't even think of that just now, but language will also impact it as well. So when you look at people, it then contextualizes the scenes that they're in, and so that's not really a media example. I should probably change that, but that's the example I used.
No, but does it have to be a media example? It just has to be a case study, right?
I don't know. Honestly, I just kind of got carried away. So I don't even know. I haven't even checked the brief on it.
Because like she allowed me to use Chinatown.
Okay, that's not very media at all.
So I'd imagine.
I use Chinatown for my blog, so yeah.
Damn.
Hey.
I use Chinatown for my blog as well. I was like, I said to myself, it will be fine for me to use it as my case study for my blog, because I suggested it in the study group. Like, I don't care about who uses it in the blogs, but for the podcast, it's mine.
Right.
I had other ideas about it. I was like, I might do because there are like refugee neighborhoods in any place, not even just in Greece, right? But I was like, most people won't know what it is, and they'll have to I'll have to explain it. So there's no point, because most people know Chinatown anyways. But
that's I mean, I think a lot of the case studies this semester for this module, kind of also will mainly look at media as the lesser thing. It's more like the communications aspect, where we're looking at people, we're looking at how those people
that's
things.
That's what I immediately thought, because Melissa's last year was very culture based as well. I remember doing commodification of culture, and it was something. It wasn't very media-esque. I was basically saying how people just sell out their culture for souvenirs.
Actually I do remember the tourist thing, because even when we looked at the idea of fourth wave feminism, that was more cultural based, and then we kind of tied it back to media by looking at Kim Kardashian, and digital sex work. So that kind of makes sense.
I mean, the module is called Post-Digital Nations Systems, but it doesn't, I don't really see the post-digital nations aspect of it. We haven't done too much stuff that, I mean, media ecology and cultural geography are like not digital at all. It's like the exact opposite.
But actually, I think that probably brings into the whole idea of like, well, if I mean, we looked at individuals last year, and this year we're now looking at like wider landscapes, right?
Yeah,
like,
I just realized what we're doing is basically actor network theory, because we're just just like breaking like online stuff back to like its basics and like its origins. Can I use it? Do you think I can use it for my example? Just like, yeah, just make it like a whole inception.
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be fun.
An example of a lesson as the example for that lesson. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
And then I get feedback like days after we submitted, like, I don't understand your example. It's kind of dumb. You could have just like used the bar one.
Yeah, that'd be quite funny. But yeah, what else do we hear? I think let's bring up one quick weakness to actor network theory, and that is this idea that it's descriptive, so it's quite an ineffective way to critique social influences. Instead, it just like says this is what they are. When you compare it to something like media ecology, that tries to make like a moral judgment by saying using this technology makes us as a society worse or as an individual worse. Whereas actor network theory just says, hey, look, this is just what it is. I don't really think that's a bad thing. I think sometimes you just have to look at things and just say this is what they are. But at the same time, even though it's not necessary, even though it doesn't make moral judgments, it does kind of like acknowledge that moral questions are there, like namely ideologies and how they shape environments. So there's a theorist here called Shapiro, not Ben Shapiro. I even did the research, and he's not related to Ben Shapiro. And so so their study was on the implications of ecology for radical symmetry in social epistemology. And they were just saying that whilst ideologies shape environments, describing them is useful, even if it's not like amazing. And also we have to remember that Latour has an anthropological background, so his concern is with people, whereas the theory itself is more rooted in science and technology, which in how the two end up kind of overlapping. So that's all I have to say on actor network theories for now. Anything to add or take away?
Well, I don't have. I have a lot to take away, but something to add. Right. So the last one, you basically said that it's not the best we could do, but it's the best we have. It's not the theory we deserve. We need. It's the theory we deserve.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and because it is quite descriptive, it does quite neatly, move into other theories that, make those moral judgments, if that